Finally, after 3 years from the beginning of the game, Zethia finally becomes a playable character, though we expected her to be more like the present Gala Xena. Her appearance came as a surprise when it was revealed in the main campaign, and at this point, Gala characters are those who made a grand appearance in the main campaign, I guess. In her current form, she gains the power of Bahamut and exists as a 5-star Shadow Blade unit, despite her weapon looking more like a sword than a blade. She brings a lot of unique features onto the table, which include only having one active skill, and her dodge counter, which is like Ilya's dodging ability, but way more powerful. Her summoning of Bahamut is definitely unique too, though Persona characters were the very first units that have this feature, but this makes Zethia the first non-limited unit to have such a mechanic. Enough talk, let's get into her incredibly confusing kit, and find out how all of these work together. Zethia has a unique attack sequence, consisting of 10 combos. Combos 3, 5, 7, 8, and 9B will generate UTP required to summon Bahamut. When Bahamut is summoned, these attacks lose the ability to generate UTP, but increase in damage modifiers. Zethia only has one skill, making her incredibly unique among all units in game, who all have 2 skills. Her only skill, Genesis Circlet, deals 1970% damage to surrounding enemies. While using this skill, Zethia is immune to knockback, and she receives 30% less damage. This skill's SP cost has 6 digits, and all of them are 9. It can both be filled by attacking, and being filled automatically, with a rate of 34,000 SP per second. The time required to fill up this skill will increase up to 2 times per battle after using the skill, though this isn't really noticeable when using her. This skill is quite complicated, but the damage output isn't really all that impressive. I do feel like this skill is more meant to perform damage reduction than dealing damage. Overall, this skill is complicated yet ultimately not very impressive, especially when compared to the rest of her kit. Zethia has the typical strength co-ability for blade units, and a defensive chain co-ability that grants 6% light resistance when there is a team critical damage amp. The chain co-ability is incredibly unimpressive, just like many co-abilities that share its nature. As for her abilities, one of them is incredibly confusing, one is easier to understand, and one is standard for Gala units. As a Gala unit, Zethia has dual resistance towards paralysis and blindness, though the latter is quite interesting, as in the story, when Zethia is in this form, she gains cataracts. Basically her own eyes go blind, while not really 100% blind. Let's go to her other ability, before we deal with the main course. Her Providential Blade allows the 5th and 9th attacks in her own attack sequence to grant a critical damage amp with a maximum amp level of 1. This is the first ability that can provide critical damage amp with the potencies with each tier as shown here. The condition for the critical damage amp forces Zethia to attack using the entire sequence, or at least trigger the 5th sequence. A great thing about this ability is that it doesn't have that annoying cooldown that some other units have, which means that she can proc critical damage amp pretty quickly and frequently. Now, we move on to her exclusive ability, the one that gave me the most headache to understand, Genesis Pact Bearer. I'll split this part into 4 sections to make things much easier. Zethia forges a pact with Bahamut, the Whim of Genesis, which replaces her dragon button with a summon button and grants a summon gauge. Similar to Dragon Drive units, when the gauge reaches at least 40%, she can summon Bahamut. Only certain attacks of Zethia can generate the UTP required for summoning Bahamut, and while Bahamut is summoned, Zethia will not gain any UTP, though her UTP depletion rate is lower compared to most Dragon Drive units. Bahamut has his own attack sequence, with his own SP regeneration, that is independent of Zethia. When he collects 120 SP, he uses his own skill, Cataclysm Beam. When compared to the equipable version of Bahamut, the Bahamut summoned by Zethia uses the most powerful version of Cataclysm Beam, dealing 4860% damage, and provides Team Strength Amp and Team Defense Amp, both having a maximum Team Amp level of 1. When swiping to dodge during a standard attack sequence, Zethia will deal an additional attack that deals 90% damage to surrounding enemies. Attacking after this dodge will continue the attack sequence from before, rather than resetting the sequence entirely. Additionally, when Zethia successfully performs a dodge, she will counter-attack once with 183% damage. She performs a T-pose in the ability icon. This symbolizes her asserting dominance towards any enemy that stands in her way. After thorough analysis, Zethia's exclusive ability is incredibly powerful, as it gives her the ability to support her team through two forms of team amps, deal massive damage, and perform attacks even when dodging. Her Providential Blade also provides a different team amp, making Zethia the first unit that can provide 3 different forms of team amps in the game. Zethia's kit provides her with a massive damage boost with her normal attacks. On the other hand, her own skill isn't really impressive, as its main usable function is probably damage reduction. Abilities that fit well for her should be focused on boosting her normal attacks to bring out the most potential from Zethia. I wouldn't really recommend skill damage on her, as normal attacks are Zethia's bread and butter. Also, dragon damage based abilities won't work on her, so don't equip those on Zethia. Shapeshift prep and dragon haste work though, so having those is fine too. For her teammates, as Zethia is a powerful main DPS unit, I would really recommend support units that can help boost her damage. She could also use good poison and shadow blight support units, as Zethia herself isn't able to inflict any form of afflictions. Units such as Delphi and Summerleo are great for poison and shadow blight supports respectively. For her dragon of choice, Bahamut is the obvious best choice for Zethia. Bahamut is currently the most powerful dragon in game, providing a whopping 120% strength increase and giving Zethia 50% of her summon gauge at the beginning of battles. Though Zethia isn't able to utilize Bahamut's kit fully, as a part of it is already integrated into Zethia's own kit, and also Bahamut's kit is more reliant on shapeshifts, as well as the powerful Cataclysm Beam. Other offensive based dragons will also be suitable for her, including Nidhogg at maximum unbind, and at level 120, as it provides an additional 40% strength on top of the base 40% strength for the first 3 minutes. Nidhogg will be especially good for quicker stages. As for her Wimprint setup, I omitted skill damage. I placed my focus on enhancing her normal attacks and summon gauge rate. This allows her normal attacks to hit harder, and also allows her to summon Bahamut more frequently. Her being a shadow unit also allows her to gain access to the attack rate increase from shadow Jito weapons, further increasing the power of her normal attacks. I guess it has to be shadow units that dominate the game. Always is, always has been. From Ieyasu to Gala Alex, then Alberius, and finally Gala Zethia. Heck, even Gala Bahamut is a literal beast of a dragon. Gala Zethia's power dwarfs many in terms of normal attacks, and the Cataclysm Beam from Zethia's summon can bring massive obliteration. Her ability to provide all 3 forms of team amps also makes her a good team support unit on top of her amazing offensive capabilities. However, aside from Cataclysm Beam and her normal attacks, her own skill isn't really all that impressive. Also, she lacks the ability to dispel and inflict afflictions, unlike her predecessors of shadow power creep before her. Overall, Gala Zethia is definitely a great unit to have, although having a confusing kit, she obliterates everything in her way when the player knows how to use her properly. Now go out there and use the power of the Genesis Whim to fight against the next main boss, the Progenitor. That's all from me. Moga out.